I love these guys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondhand Lions Podcast. We are remote today. I am in a hotel in Nashville. We've been visiting my son and his family, and John is with his nephew Sam, and they're in a river in Canada in a boat. Good thing they're in a boat, right? They're in a river in Canada in a boat, and but we're so committed to this podcast, we still wanted to bring it to you. So. John, you have some updates on the injuries for the Lions so far. So why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah, Bill, and it's good to be here with you for number 55, week 3 of year 2 of the Secondhand Lions, where we are taking the journey with the Lions to the Super Bowl. And big question is, will it be this year? But before I jump into the players, I'm actually not in the boat, but I was. We're at a fishing club with the boat 50 feet away from us, so hopefully our signal holds up here.
Hopefully you anchored it.
Yeah, we're tied to the dock, and we got a nice day here outdoors. But yeah, just some updates. So we learned last week, I think I said Giovanni Manu is out for a couple weeks, but no, it's more serious than that. It looks like it could be 12 weeks, give or take. Jimmy Rolder got injured. I believe a leg. I'm not sure his status, but I don't think it's going to be short. He may be out for a while. Anthony Fursker, who they brought in because Tyler Conklin is still on the PUP list. So Anthony Fursker, tight end, he broke his fibula. And that could be a crack and he could be back in 2 months, or it could be a complete break and it could be most of the year. Vaki broke his nose the other day. He's out for a couple of days. And they did, by the way, Bill, sign Devin White because two of their linebackers are hurt. Actually, they brought Devin White in after Jimmy Rolder's injury. I didn't know who Devin White is, Bill, but he last year was number 3 in the league in tackles. Oh my gosh, our middle linebacker.
Rodrigo?
No.
Jack Campbell.
Thank you.
Jack.
That's, I have about 2 brain freezes every time on this, but Jack Campbell was number 2 in the league last year in tackles, but Devin White was number 3. He was back in the day, 8 years ago, the number 5 draft pick overall. And he played on the Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay team with Tom Brady. So this is a guy that brings a lot to the organization. So I'm excited about that. So let me go back to you because there was some news that impacts Jameer Gibbs. So
yeah, Bijan Robinson signed a big contract for several years. I think his annual is $35 million a year, and now the pressure's on the Lions to sign Jameer Gibbs. It was kind of one was waiting for the other to see who was going to sign first, and then the other one was going to ask for at least that much. So the question is, are the Lions going to be able to sign Gibbs? Certainly think they will. I don't know if they're going to sign him for that number annually. They might sign him for less for more years, but I'm sure the guaranteed number will be equivalent to Bijan Robinson. He's integral to the Lions' offense and their hopes of going to the Super Bowl. If he remains uninjured and plays the way he has the last couple of years, he'll be the feature of the Lions' running attack. Now that Sonic and Knuckles is Sonic and don't have a name for Pacheco yet, there was actually a contest on the Lions website to see what the new name for the duo should be. The 3 or 4 they suggested were kind of silly. I won't name them, but yeah, what do you think of Gibbs, John?
Well, I know I was able to see that report on Robinson. He got just under $67 million for 3 years. That's a big pay. That's a lot of money for a running back.
Yeah.
So my guess is Gibbs. I don't know if he's got the ego that he's got to be the highest paid, but it does set a higher bar for him, and I'm sure his agent's going to do the best he can for Gibbs. And you're right. I mean, he's probably the best back overall in the game right now when you consider age and total value to his team. So anyhow, we got a guest on here. Last guest we had on was my daughter, Katie. And after that episode, I said, we should just get rid of me, let her take over. But my guest here is my nephew, Sam Erickson. And interesting because Sam grew up in Montana as a Seahawks fan, as did his dad grew up in Montana and was initially a Vikings fan and eventually a Seahawks fan. But then his dad wanted to be contrarian to a lot of his friends and just picked the Lions decades ago, and then married.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, well, not today though. He married my sister-in-law who was from Michigan, so that just brought a lot of Detroit camaraderie, and so Sam is kind of bilingual here, a Seahawks fan and a Lions fan. So Sam, Seahawks won the Super Bowl. I want to get to that, but first, in your words, how did you end up a Seahawks fan and a Lions fan?
Well, you did a pretty good job of explaining it. Yeah, my dad wanted to go against the grain with his brothers and cousins, all a bunch of Scandinavians from the Midwest, and so he picked the Lions and was a Lions fan. And then when the expansion happened and the Seahawks were added, they were getting Seahawks games in Western Montana, and so became a Seahawks fan as well. And then married into my mom's family, and there's a lot of Lions fans there. They're all from Michigan, and so it kind of consolidated the Detroit side of things, and I've had dual loyalty ever since.
Yeah, and that's been great because he's the student of this game and these teams, and if I ever need info on the Seahawks, I talk to him, and but Lions too. And so Sam, before we talk about the Lions, Seahawks won it all. So just any comments on that and comments on maybe the Seahawks going into this year?
Well, yeah, the Seahawks, I mean, their defense is tough to beat. I think McDonald really is the kind of McVay's equivalent of the offensive mastermind. He really has the other side of the ball to a similar degree, and I do think that's going to be hard to get past just in the NFC writ large. But I think that the Lions are going to have probably a pretty comparably potent offense, and I'm really curious to see how they match up against one another. I think the NFC is a real arms race and has superseded the AFC in most ways the last few years, and there's some really good teams there. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
So I'm sure Bill's probably thinking along this line, the Rams. You mentioned the NFC West, and yeah, I think you had told me, Sam, that when Myles Garrett went to the Rams, everybody's saying, "Oh,
Well, it sounds like we lost John from the campsite in Canada, so I'll continue with the Rams. Got Myles Garrett, and he solidified their defense, and they're hoping they'll be comparable to the Seahawks. I mean, it came down to a coin toss last year as to who was going to win uh, that division, who was going to win the NFC. Seattle converted a 2-point conversion, and that got them the home field for the NFC Championship game. And then that game was close. And if not for a blown punt reception, the Rams probably would have won that game. But that's not what happened. Seattle got it, and then they easily beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That was a no contest. So, and John may not be able to get back on, so I'm going to continue with. I have 6 things. We talk about the Lions going to the Super Bowl. And I think there's 6 things that are necessary for any team to win. And those things are belief, discipline, talent, depth, health, and luck. And I just like to go through each of those. First is belief, and you can call that will, or you can say um, culture or system. But there's a belief among all the players that they're good enough, that every time they go into a game, they're going to win. When they get down in a game, they're going to come back. And belief is essential. The Lions, for years, had teams that were talented, but they would get in tight games and figure out a way to not win. And part of that was the culture. They just didn't have the belief that they were the team. Following that, then you have to have the discipline. You can't be taking unnecessary penalties, jumping off sides, lining up off sides, taking unwarranted pass interference penalties. Our former cornerback, Terrion Arnold, he was doing that quite a bit in the last couple of years. Not the only one, but just taking penalties that really hurt the team. That we're going to have penalties that are out of aggression or one thing, but just silly penalties, taunting, things like that. You have to have discipline. You have to have discipline with things such as containment on the edge. So many times I've seen great defensive ends, pass rushers. They think they have an inside track, they'll make a move, and then the running back gets on the outside and goes for a big gain because they've lost contain. Bill Belichick was famous for telling his players, do your job. Do your job. Don't worry about the other guy's job. You do your job. And that's part of being disciplined. And the Lions, they need to be disciplined. They need to not make foolish mistakes. And the coaches need to be disciplined. They can't be out of emotion going for it on 4th down every time. They have to weigh the odds and balance the results. And I'm still convinced they would have gone to the Super Bowl that year against San Francisco when they had a big lead if they would have punted instead of going for or tried a long field goal instead of going for a 1st down on 4th, gave the ball back to San Francisco. And then the third thing that you need is talent, and the Lions have that. I put the other 2 first because I think they're more important. There have been teams that haven't had a lot of talent, or they haven't had as much talent as other teams. I'm even thinking of New England sometimes didn't have as much talent as the opposition, but they had enough talent combined with the belief and the discipline to get the job done. But the Lions have elite talent. They have elite talent across the board on offense. Jameer Gibbs, Jared Goff, Penei Sewell, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Isaac Tesla might turn out to be elite. He certainly has shown flashes of that. So they have elite offensive talent, and they may that may get them to the Super Bowl if they have the belief and the discipline to go along with it. The fourth thing that I think is necessary is you have to have depth. You have to have depth so that you can rotate players in and out. We were talking to Sam a few minutes ago, and that's one of the things that Seattle had is they had talent, but they had depth. And if you have depth on defense and you can rotate your defensive line in and out, you can constantly put pressure on the opposition. That goes a long way. And along with depth, you have to have health. The Lions have been plagued the last several years with injuries, just a plethora of injuries, especially on defense. And uh, part of keep staying healthy is having depth. If you have players that can rotate in and out, then you're not as tired, you're not as prone to be injured. Um, Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg in a game where the Lions were ahead by 1,000,000 points, and uh, maybe he shouldn't have been in the game at that point. Uh, that's easy to say after the fact, I know, but you have to have health, you have to have depth, and finally, you need to have a little luck. Uh, Going back again to that game in San Francisco a couple of years ago, uh, the Lions had the lead. The San Francisco was down 17. They threw a deep pass to uh, their defender or their receiver at the goal line. I forget who the receiver was, but the Lions uh, cornerback had the ball go through his hands, actually hit him in the helmet, bounce up, and the Rams receiver caught the ball, or the 49ers receiver caught the ball, and that started their comeback. Um, and then after that, it was an avalanche. The 49ers caught fire. The Lions um, just didn't have what it takes on defense the rest of the game, and they had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And Dan Campbell, after the game, said, "This could be your only chance." We're hoping that that's not the case, that this year maybe they will be able to come through and have those things go right for them this time. And that's where luck comes in. So you have to have the belief, the discipline to execute. You have to have the talent, and the Lions have talent, especially on the offense. They have elite talent. You need to have depth. We've talked previously on this podcast that the Lions have their most complete roster since uh, Dan Campbell has been the coach. And then you have to have health, and these injury reports are not good in that regard, but it's early, so hopefully they'll mostly recover. And then you have to have a little luck, and the Lions haven't had that in these playoff games. So we're hoping that this is the year. I don't know if John has returned or not.
I
Is he
have returned. Yeah,
are
can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah,
We
we're
lost
here.
you there for a while.
We went off for a minute and came back on just as you started talking about the six things. So I appreciated hearing that, and great job with that. And bringing up that luck issue, the immediate before you started talking about the example, I looked at Sam and said, "Yeah, the ball off the helmet in the playoff game," and that's exactly right. I mean, that could have been an interception or certainly an incompletion, but that may be the play that swung that kept the Lions out of the Super Bowl. So luck is part of it, but it's not a strategy. So, but it's part of getting, to go that far. So, Bill, I think when we dropped off, Sam was talking about how, even though Rams got Myles Garrett, that doesn't guarantee anything. And so I do want to come back to Sam, who we've established is both a Seahawks and a Lions fan, and ask, so Sam, if the Seahawks and Lions are in the NFC Championship game this year, not the Rams, who are you rooting for, buddy?
Well, I really hope to have this quandary of decision. That sounds like an excellent problem to have. And I
Remember, John has your boat ride back to the.
I even without the threat of abandonment, I would say I would be rooting for the Lions because I've gotten to see the Seahawks in three Super Bowls, win two, and it's awesome. And I really want that for the Lions, and I think yeah, they deserve it. The Seahawks have been good and they'll be good, but I think I would really like to see the Lions shine now.
All
We're
right.
with you there.
Well, he's got a ride back, But no, he's a real Lions fan, and I think so much of America would love to see the Lions get into their first Super Bowl, and I think a lot of America loves the Lions right now.
For sure.
Well, Sam, speaking of the Lions, I asked you about the Seahawks, but anything you want to say as we start wrapping up about this year's Lions or just anything in general? And then Bill, if you got any questions for Sam, but let me start with that one. Anything specific to this year's Lions?
Well, yeah, Bill, I appreciated your points and the point on luck. I think, it's not something you can count on one way or the other, but that certainly was a defining thread in the Seahawks season last year that, they were a very good team and played at a very high level. They got really lucky with injuries. They didn't have any really major injuries and they had the depth to keep guys fresh. They're able to get home on the pass rush without blitzing. I think, I really hope that the Lions pass rush can hold up like that and take some pressure off of their defensive backfield. That felt like a really major factor last season in the unraveling of some of those games. And like, yeah, sometimes things just break a certain way. Like in that championship game, you got that freak pass with Vildor and Ayuk, and then Gibbs losing his first fumble of the season on that drive in the second half, and just a few really kind of freak plays broke in a certain way. Freak injuries, whatever it is, and outside of that, yeah, like hopefully the stars align in that regard, and I think that the Lions' offense is going to be powerful enough to make up for a number of deficiencies that may come about on the other side of the ball. I hope to see them. I think they will be quite improved, and I'm really excited to see how it shakes out.
Well, I hope you're right. I do
So,
have a
Bill,
question for you.
Yeah.
How did you feel when they passed on 3rd and 1 against New England?
Um, I I really regret that play went the way that it did. I mean, I see a little bit of logic there where they were stuffing Marshawn on that drive or that series, but no, I mean they had what, three cracks at it. I think they should have just kept pounding it. I mean that was a brutal rip your heart out kind of loss to see, and it was good to get a little revenge on those Patriots last year.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, uh, you were emulating the Lions when you did that one. The
No kidding.
Lions of old, figuring
Yeah.
out a way right at the end to. But I had I remember another game with Seattle where Calvin Johnson fumbled the ball into the end zone,
Oh man.
and the Seattle player purposely batted it out of the back of the end zone right in front of the referee, and they didn't call it. Lions should have had the ball 1st and goal at the 1, but instead their playoff hopes were dashed. So uh, I appreciate you being a Seattle fan, but I've never had any love lost for those guys.
I I understand. Yeah, there's been a few defining moments like that leave me a little conflicted. I hate to see bad blood between those teams, but I understand.
Sure. Well, we really appreciate you having you on here. Um, John, do you have any last thoughts before we sign off?
well, just to say that our first preseason game's coming up August 13th against the Bengals. That's actually a travel day for me. It'll be my last day here on the road, but looking forward to that. But that's all I've got. I did want to put an asterisk on what Sam said about the Lions offense. Should be able to make up for various defensive deficiencies. But I think overall, Lions, they need a top 15 defense. And if they have a top 10 defense, they're in the Super Bowl. That's my prediction.
I,
That's
Yeah,
all I got.
I agree with you.
yeah.
Well, John, we're planning to be in New Hampshire on the evening of the 14th, we can do the podcast after the game on the 15th.
The game's on the 13th, so we can do the podcast. Yeah, 14th or 15th. I look forward to it, but that's still 2 weeks away, right?
Yeah.
No.
So next week, where will you be?
Almost.
Still in Canada?
Wait, next week is
It's the
12th.
It's the 5th today.
No. Yeah, next week's the 12th.
So we'll just do the podcast on the 15th after the game. How's that?
Let me circle back to you. I got to figure out where we're going to be. And so, but with that, folks, we'll be back next week for sure for number 56. And I want to thank you, Sam, for being on here today. We'll bring you back at some point during the playoffs, hopefully, because there will be a Seahawks Lions conversation. So
beautiful. Well, thank you guys.
Good to meet you, Sam.
Likewise. This was great. Thank you.
All right, Bill. Safe travels. See you sometime next week.
All right. Have a good vacation.
Thanks to our listeners, and bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.